Welcome to Green Hills Shadow, Chapter 6, Sharing is Caring. Tom wasn't sure how Shadow was going to react to the socks, and he had hoped it wasn't discussed. It was something so basic, since his boys also had them to protect their paw pads. Shadow's face of genuine surprise, though, made the trip worthwhile, and maybe hurt his heart again. It seemed to be a habit with this kid. He and Maddie needed that walk, and his quick trip to the store in the car. It gave Shadow time to bond with the boys and relax, well, as best as he could. And he and Maddie decided to come up with a plan while they were out. Stuff they were going to do and how they were going to go about it. Easier said than done with a reluctant hedgehog, but it's better to try because it would let him know they care. It's just proving that. Patience is definitely needed here. It also helps that he has 3 amazing kids who could relate to Shadow to various degrees. Of course, what the common theme with them is something tragic happened in their lives. He wished he knew Shadow's so he doesn't push boundaries. But as they say, every day is a school day, and his is figuring out said boundaries. He looked at his phone and noticed it was around 12:45 p.m. in the afternoon. Maddie had begun making sandwiches for lunch. They knew roughly what their kids liked. What was holding up the process was Shadow's. They don't know what he likes and doesn't like. Terrible hosts if they gave him something he doesn't like. But again, trial and error. They also had to think about maybe giving him something light as well, considering Tom felt his ribs. He told Maddie, who took it upon herself at this point to ensure he gets some weight.
Salad?
Salad is good. Deli?
What about chicken?
They eventually settled on turkey with some salad, so that sorted everyone's lunch. He ended up taking Shadow's and Knuckles' plate of sandwiches and sat the black hedgehogs on the armchair of the couch. No sound was made again from the hedgehog, but that was to be expected.
Thank you, Father. I am quite hungry.
Knuckles took the plate and began to dig in.
I'm sure you are, Bud.
Maddie came through with Sonic and Tails, who thanked her for theirs.
Okay, so what can we watch while we eat lunch this time?
Tom asked, picking up the remote while Maddie went to get her and Tom's lunch.
How about Supermarket Sweep?
Tails pointed out, taking a bite of his sandwich.
Oh, actually, what about a documentary about something? Let Shadow learn something new.
Shadow froze in picking up his sandwich and gave the most hilarious look to the fonts Tom had seen yet. He definitely didn't try and hold back a snort. Nope.
Documentaries are boring and only for nerds.
Sonic said, earning a glare from not only Tails but also Shadow as well. Both of them had the appearance of if looks could kill, and he couldn't suppress the snort that time.
Well, I know what to put on your headstone. Here lies Sonic. Death by offending the kid genius has a nice ring to it.
Tom flicked through the channels, ignoring Sonic's offended expression.
I'm so offended right now.
Sonic bit into his sandwich, not at all serious.
I can tell.
I'm the big brother. It's my privilege to love my kid brother.
Tails pushed against Sonic, who laughed in good nature. Maddie had come back into the room at this point and had sat hers and Tom's food down, sitting on the mattress that was still out.
So what's on?
Good question. I am due to just pick some random TV show while we eat. Everybody loves this. And all too.
Tom hummed, sitting with Maddie, grabbing his own plate. Everyone began eating their sandwiches and watched the show. Tom snuck a few glances at Shadow, seeing he was eating at the very least, but slowly compared to the rest of them. He wanted to ask if he likes it, but he knows he won't get an answer. He'll just take him taking bites.
Shadow, as you know, our mother is a healer. Our father is a protector of Green Hills.
Knuckles decided to share that with the black symbiont. With a raised brow at the echidna, Tom could see a gaze of question and, dare he say, curiosity from the black symbiont.
I mean, Knuckles isn't wrong. I am the sheriff. So you could say I run the Department of Green Hills. enforcing laws, and all that boring paperwork stuff. I don't do it alone. I have my deputies help me, and others, of course. We help make sure our town is safe.
He wasn't sure if the Black Hedgehog would want to know, considering, but he did seem to be listening. Shadow didn't understand what comes with being a sheriff. He doesn't look like a cowboy, but if Knuckles says he's a protector, that must be a good thing. He must be like the echidna to a degree, he thought.
I thought it would be good for our friends to know that he has a warrior and a sheriff protection for this town.
Knuckles raised a fist with a grin.
Our tribe is mighty.
Tom had a goofy grin at his son's enthusiasm and ways to make the day better. So he held out his fist for Knuckles, who lit up and bumped his own fist back. Of course, withholding a lot of his strength so he doesn't harm the human. But Tom noticed Shadow watching with interest, not hiding his curiosity this time.
Our tribe is mighty.
Maddie grinned herself and snuck a kiss on her husband's cheek, causing Sonic to gag and grab his throat from the exposure.
Hey, I'm eating here.
That's all look, Blueberry. Can't help but love my husband.
Tom chuckled and leaned over, ruffling the blue hedgehog's head, giving him a tuft of fur at the top, then went back to his sandwich, vaguely having his attention on the television. Tails turned his head towards Shadow.
How is the sandwich? I think yours is a lot like mine. It has turkey.
He asked, wanting to include him. Tom, out of the corner of his eye, saw Shadow lean forward best he could towards the fox, and looked like he mouthed something. Obviously still not ready to speak around him and Maddie, but that was alright. They both expected it. Of course, Maddie will have to take him to the clinic when he's settled down, or try to see if he's up for it tomorrow. A checkup just for him. He just hopes that they don't have to drag him kicking and screaming, which was looking very likely. Lunch went by quickly with the chatter, and Maddie looked thrilled that Shadow managed to eat the sandwich. He didn't hesitate like he did with Tom's breakfast at the very least, just more slow to eat than the rest of them. Sonic hadn't really left his face around Black Hedgehog either. Anytime he got up to do something, he immediately went back to the spot underneath Shadow. They really had the best kids, that's for sure. No one could convince Tom or Maddie otherwise.
Everyone full?
Tom asked, gathering the plates up once again.
And help me and your mom think of what to have for dinner tonight. And no, not overly greasy, so no fast food.
Something nutritious.
That's helpful, Knuckles, thank you.
We can brainstorm. I could get a piece of paper and write stuff down.
Aw, come on. Shouldn't we let Shadow experience the joy of fast food? I can't remember if our home planet had any.
Sonic added, clearly wanting fast food. He ended up getting challenging stares from his parents and he backtracked immediately.
On second thought, home cooked sounds better.
He gave them a sheepish smile. Shadow rolled his eyes at the blue hedgehog and he shuffled to make himself more comfortable. And Tom lit up, seeing the socks he had brought were now on Black Hedgehog's feet. He hadn't put on the gloves just yet, but Tom felt better regardless.
Home cooked, yes. Still a while off, but we can get ideas closer to the time.
Maddie took the plates into the kitchen.
Hey, I have an idea. We should take Shadow to the yard. Get some fresh air since it's a really nice day.
Tails asked Tom. Shadow sat a little straighter, giving the fox a glance. He had a curious look in those red eyes of his, another habit of his. Tom rubbed his chin and gave it some thought. It is quite a nice day, and Shadow is still recovering from his wounds, weighing pros and cons against each other in his head.
Do they have transport on your planet?
He asked, trying to clarify if Shadow would have seen any mechanical vehicle of any sort.
He'd be hearing cars go by at some points in the day.
Yeah, but those were in the major cities. People go around in all sorts of ways back home. Plus, we have the warp rings. Transport is far easier in that regard.
The fox's tails wagged up and down like they usually do when he was thinking.
Plus, the yard is private. No one's gonna see him.
Shadow, nod or shake your head. Nod for yes, shake for no. Have you seen a car?
He nodded. Okay, good start.
What about baseball? It was my introduction to fun. Perhaps it can be his as well.
Thoughtful bud, but I don't think he's fully fit for that. No offense, Shadow, but we can't have you bursting that laceration on your abdomen.
Tom thought he heard a grumble come from the hedgehog.
And I would like to change those bandages.
Maddie came into the living room after cleaning everyone's plates.
Shadow?
She held up the bandages and the black hedgehog frowned.
I know, baby. But we don't need bacteria to build up, so I'd like either me or someone you'd let help freshen up those bandages.
The black hedgehog was silent, processing Maddie's words. But then he held out his hand, as if he would do it. She rose an eyebrow at him.
Yourself. But what if you open that abdomen back up from twisting and turning your body?
She challenged the black symbiont who scowled at her.
If it helps to choose someone, me and Tom could leave the room if that makes you more comfortable.
He looked like he was contemplating the only choices he was given by the mother of three. His red eyes gazed at Knuckles, then back at Maddie. Clearly the echidna would be the winner though. Knuckles got up slightly and made his way over to the black hedgehog, held his mitts out for Maddie to put the bandages in. Well, that settles that. She dropped them onto his hand and gestured for Tom to come out in the hall with her to give Shadow space.
Boys, you too.
Maddie said to both Tails and Sonic, who looked ready to protest but followed her and Tom out into the hallway, and she closed the door behind her.
Why can't we be there?
Shadow is hurt, buddy. He might not want attention to the wounds. We don't need a repeat of your brush mishap now, do we? So, outside?
You'd have to carry him, and he clearly doesn't want either of us touching him as of this moment. I don't feel comfortable letting him walk that distance just yet. Not with what I saw.
Knuckles can help him outside, then maybe we can show him outdoor games? Like football.
America or Europe? Cause I don't feel like having Knuckles ram into me to get the ball. I'd be set flying into a tree.
Europe. American football is the equivalent of British rugby. My dad, I should have said soccer in the first place.
How do you know that though?
Tom blinked at Sonic, who just shrugged.
I spent a lot of time watching TV when I was super bored. I might have seen people watch the overseas stuff. You hear a thick British accent sometimes say football, can never get it out of my head.
Tom chuckled at that, but the next sentence made Tom's heart stop for a brief moment.
Also, yeah, Shadow won't let you touch him cause humans hold him captive.
Hold the phone. Both Maddie and Tom looked startled by Sonic's casual admission. Tails didn't look surprised by it, so Shadow must have told them something.
Repeat that?
Tom couldn't hold back the confusion in his voice. Sonic, however, blinked and his ears pinned back against his head, like he didn't mean to blurt that out. Sometimes his mouth betrayed the blue hedgehog far too much.
Shadow was held captive by humans.
Tails repeated it, and Sonic gave him an exasperated look.
You said it first.
Maddie and Tom looked at each other. They guessed some humans may have done something to the alien hedgehog, and they connected the dots, but to actually have it confirmed, it was a lot to take in. Now the question is, how long was he kept?
Mom, Dad, I want to help him, but I don't want to take that choice from Shadow to tell you. Yes, Shadow was kept as a captive. I don't know how long, so don't ask. But they...
Sonic swallowed back a lump, unable to go on.
Oh, bud.
Tom muttered. He reached down and hugged his blue child, who quickly pulled into the hug with great need. Tails leaned into Maddie, who also did the same for the fox.
They wouldn't even allow him to talk, Mom. You gotta help him.
Both of them looked at each other. So it wasn't just Mobius that failed Shadow. Earth failed him too. His first experience with humans was nothing but bad. It makes sense, his distaste for humans. Now that it's been said out in the open, not just implied, but confirmed, it's their worst nightmare in full form. No fault of Shadow's. This could have happened to Sonic if that Robotnik scientist got a hold of him, and their hearts just broke. The boys had them, their family, willing to fight. But who fought for Shadow? Knuckles silently had been bandaging the black hedgehog, doing one at a time where his mother and father had previously done so. He snuck a glance at Shadow, who chewed on his lip, complete irritation on his face. He hated being touched. He looked ready to bolt or maybe bite. Could go either way. But when it came time to do the one on his abdomen, Knuckles hadn't seen it, but his eyes widened at the length and the uneven job of the stitches, and they weren't given much care by the looks of it. And from Shadow's movements on the previous bandage, some blood had dried on it. He pursed his lip, trying not to snarl in distaste, and upset Shadow. He very much wished he could go break their skulls.
Dishonor.
He muttered, reapplying the bandage around the area and shoulder with care.
Dishonor.
Shadow tried to stay still for Knuckles, who didn't stop bandaging the area.
To those who did this, a dishonorable act. This wound was done with the intent to harm when you couldn't even defend yourself, and it was poorly stitched.
The echidna had anger in his voice. That Shadow could tell.
You sound familiar with stitches.
I am a warrior. It is inevitable you learn how to stitch your wounds after a battle if you had no healer around. In your case, the healer did it very poorly. Little effort.
He tossed the old bandages onto the table.
My blood is special, Knuckles.
Shadow mentioned to the red sempient in hopes it would calm him down. He isn't used to people being angry in his stead. At least, not anymore. He could see the echidna give him an eye wanting more information. He doesn't see the point of withholding it from him, even if he's dreading it. But if it helps.
Healing. I have faster healing than an average Mobian. Example?
He said with a matter of fact, lifted his arm on the side that was bandaged, and pulled it off, and Knuckles was about to protest until Shadow nodded his head at the area to look closer. And he did. Surprise lit up on the echidna's face. The previous cuts were gone, and some of his bruising as well. His black fur unfortunately camouflaged the areas. You had to either feel or look very closely. Knuckles shouldn't have missed that.
So you let me bandage areas that I've already mended?
His voice couldn't hide the confusion. Shadow at least looked sheepish a little.
I didn't want to take the desire to help away from you. I really don't talk about my blood. It is one of the reasons the humans were interested in me. The laceration is a lot better than before. Now that I've had food, it'll be quite healed tomorrow.
Silence came between them. Knuckles began undressing his bandages.
Knuckles?
Do not be ashamed of your abilities. It is a gift given to you. I'm going to tell Mother.
Shadow was about to open his mouth, but the echidna held up his hand.
I'm quite sure you don't want her hovering you, my friend. I understand your nervousness, but for her sanity and mine, it is best we tell her you're healing to a degree, so she doesn't come down on either of us as to why I've only kept the abdomen area covered.
Shadow felt his ears pin back and let out an irritated sigh. Knuckles looked at the hedgehog, silence coming between them again. The echidna understood he learned something that Shadow did not want known, but he trusted the echidna and his judgment thus far. So, since Shadow trusted him, Knuckles took off his mitt, showing the spikes on the echidna's back hand. Gesturing to him, and Shadow looked at it with amazement. It was a part of him, not just a glove style choice.
You told me your secret. I shall show you mine in exchange. As a warrior, I have given away a piece of myself, just as you did with me.
He proudly stated, holding his hand out for Shadow to examine, who did with his eyes, with interest in them.
You keep saying that. Warrior. What is a warrior?
There are many values, many different ways one can be a warrior. Warriors are strong. The battles we fight shape us into who we are. It is our purpose, our way of life, by showing our best possible selves and overcoming obstacles. But not all warriors will have values like I. Each are different.
Shadow was still looking at his spikes.
Some warriors seek war, seek destruction, like my ancestors.
He added, gaining Shadow's attention.
Some conquer others and take away their freedom. As I said, many ways to describe a warrior. It depends on what one's definition is of a warrior. Ideals are what makes one.
It takes time to realize one's ideals.
Shadow said to the red echidna, who grinned at the hedgehog.
Nobody is born a warrior. We make ourselves into one, like yourself.
He put his glove back on.
But I'm not one.
Yes, you are. In my eyes, you are a fellow warrior.
Knuckles said with a serious tone, making Shadow stare, disbelief on his face.
Shadow, not many would have survived what you have had to go through. Warriors have different definitions, and you, to me, my friend, are a strong warrior.
He gently reached out and pressed his hand against the black hedgehog's chest, lightly, but with intent.
I am proud and honored to know such a warrior.
Shadow blinked at the echidna, mouth opening and closing. He thought the echidna pulled back his hand, but kept a pressed smile at him. He could feel those emotions he locked away coming up again.
You barely know me, Knuckles.
It still doesn't make it less of an honor, my friend. We will get to know each other as time permits us.
I'm honored to know you too, Knuckles.
He muttered, feeling his face heat up with embarrassment. He wasn't used to this. The only person who would ever treat Shadow like this was Maria. He wondered what she would think about the people here. She would say he made a friend. Perhaps he has.
Well, since we are done with the dressing, is it alright for my family to re-enter?
Shadow just nodded. He still appreciates him asking consent and trying to respect his boundaries he may have, which is something he still isn't quite used to. This place is just so confusing to him. He decided to put on the gloves since he had the socks on himself. He hasn't had socks or gloves in a long time, though he doesn't know how long, just that it had been years. And Sonic's bears actually fitted. They felt quite comfortable, actually. He put his rings comfortably on the glove sockets. A nice fit, just like his socks. Now he felt more like himself. The only parts he needed were his shoes. But once he's recovered, he might ask Knuckles to help him navigate this place he has yet to see. Speaking of, Side Hedgehog came back zooming in and flopped on the armchair.
Looking better, Shadow.
The blue hedgehog grinned at him, who rose an eyebrow.
Yes, he is always this excitable.
Knuckles added to a question Shadow had on his mind. Another thing for Shadow to note, the red Semphians could be a mind reader following nose. Tails came in as well, taking Moonshine's less bandaged self, not hiding his curiosity.
You do look less like a mummy.
Shadow didn't know what that was. His nose scrunched up. Now that he thinks about it, isn't a mummy a decaying body that's wrapped up? He's not decaying as far as he was aware. Tom and Maddie joined, but both also saw the bandages or lack thereof.
Knuckles?
He is a chaos wielder like me and Sonic. He has faster healing than both of us. Most have mended, and the one on his abdomen just needs a few more days. Quite a rare ability.
Now that just made Tails have a look of pure fascination, and Maddie had to fight to keep the shock off her face. Tom didn't bother to hide it. Shadow ignored them and fiddled with his ring, so he didn't have to look at them. But he could feel the questioning glances. He may have begun to shake a little, and he felt the anxiety rise. He sighed and sat up a little straighter and held out his arm to show Maddie, gesture not lost on her. She made her way over and Shadow tensed but still allowed her to get close enough to look at the small injuries that are now gone and the bruising on some areas. She didn't touch him at the very least. Yeah, no use in hiding her surprise at this development.
Wow, you were kidding.
It was amazing to see Mobians have such abilities, and it looks like Shadow had a rare one indeed, but his injuries, the indication of the puncture marks from needles, it shouldn't have happened. Because of his abilities, it made him a target. It shouldn't have happened at all.
Thank you for showing me, honey. I appreciate it.
Shadow swallowed and quickly pulled away and began to actively not look at any of them. Knuckles patted the couch and lifted the old bandages off the table to put them in the bin. Tom smiled some. Knuckles certainly had a way to get through to their reluctant guest. The walls were coming down at their own pace. So, one step at a time, one day at a time.
Glad you like the socks too, buddy.
Tom said, and dare he say the black hedgehog's ears were almost red. He grinned. He couldn't resist. It became quite the afternoon. With lots of pleading, Tom and Maddie let Knuckles help Shadow outside to the outside decking chair, who proceeded to bask in the sunlight with his black fur. Tails had sat beside him on the other chair with a few books he planned to read to the black symbiont. The sun didn't hide the mass or the discoloration on his red streaks, or the bruising on his head and cheek, even if they were beginning to heal. He really needed a bath, but it was best to wait another day or two and get him comfortable, even if it drove Sonic crazy with his lack of quill care. So while Tails read a book to the Black Hedgehog, whose ears were twisted in the fox's direction, he focused on the other two symbionts. Sonic wanted to show Shadow what soccer was, so he and Knuckles were demonstrating how it's played. Well, tried to. Knuckles kicked too hard to begin with, which resulted in the ball flying far into the distance, and Sonic had to speed off to catch it. He came back covered in leaves in his quills, with a deadpan look at the echidna. Tom chuckled and made his way over to help Knuckles dial back his power in kicking. He gave him a few examples and had Sonic act like a goalkeeper, just to show the power of the kick the human had to use. So Knuckles tried again. Tom had to duck and cover as the ball went hurling towards him, and it took out a tree instead, leaving a nice gaping hole. Knuckles let out a dialect Shadow had never heard before. Tails giggled at what he said. Tom groaned and sat himself up.
Alright, let's try that again. And let's not take out any more trees.
Sonic luckily had a spare ball at the ready since the other one was practically destroyed thanks to the echidna. Shadow was quite happy he wasn't on the receiving end of that. Shadow looked at the kit.
You understood what he said?
Just some. He spoke in the echidna tongue, which is practically an ancient but dead language on Mobius.
How many languages do you know?
I'm still learning human ones. I know roughly 5 languages from Mobius.
He said before continuing the story to Shadow. Shadow was impressed. Perhaps he could ask the kid more about it later. Maddie came out shortly after fixing up Shadow's spot on the couch, and she may have added a few more pillows to the Black Hedgehog. And she has pillow mist at the ready for tonight for him, but that'll be her little secret for now. She went out onto the grass and decided to join her boys and even the odds. She and Tom against Knuckles and Sonic. Shadow didn't know the emotion in his heart, seeing Maddie laugh and wrap her arms around the red symbiont, who protested that she was cheating and it's dishonorable. But the smile on his face betrayed how he felt. Sonic tried to get his mother's attention, but his father snuck up behind the blue blur and held him high with a huge grin on the human's face. His heart hurt seeing it. In a good way, or a bad way, he wasn't sure. It reminded him of a simpler time he had with Maria. Despite the ache, though, he felt content launching them. Tails kept reading, and so he listened, and he watched their game, the sun basking down on his fur, making him feel all the more warm. Dinner had come just as quickly, the day just passing by them. All of them back inside the makeshift sleepover in the living room, the usual spot since this morning with the television playing some type of show. Shadow, though, couldn't eat his portion. He tried to, but after a couple of bites, his stomach protested. He had forgotten he hadn't had 3 meals a day in quite a long time, but he still tried to force it down. He didn't want to waste the food or look rude, or potentially have someone force it down him. So he kept going. His stomach was very unhappy with him. Of course, Maddie picked up on it and told the Black Hedgehog if he is full, he doesn't have to finish it. He tried to anyway. Tom hurriedly had to get up because Shadow began to unfortunately gag, his stomach betraying him, and ran to get him what Maddie dubbed the sick bucket. He ended up being sick. Some of his food came back up. His abdomen flared, letting the Black Hedgehog know it was annoyed, as was his stomach. Sonic couldn't eat his food after that, feeling queasy. Well, most of them agreed, so the dinner was put by into the fridge for leftovers. Quite the eventful dinner. Actually, the entire day was eventful. Shadow laid it into the new pillows Maddie had done for him, and she had sprayed with pillow mist, and it smelled like lavender. He almost looked like a person who caught a cold, all bundled in with the blanket, and he looked quite drained after all of that. No one could blame him. Knuckles and Sonic were underneath him again, Tails included. But a knock at the door gained Tom's attention, so while Maddie fed Ozzy, he went into the hallway to answer the door. On the other side was his deputy when he answered it, who had 2 bags of stuff.
Wade?
Hey, so I got some stuff for Shadow.
Wade stated, holding up the bags. Tom had told Wade the Hedgehog's name when he called in for the day off, but he wasn't expecting Wade to go out and buy him stuff.
Wade, I told you he's jumpy around humans.
Well, can you give these to him?
Wade responded back, not budging. Obviously, he was worried about the Hedgehog just as much as he and Maddie are.
I do have something that belongs to him, though.
Oh?
Wade sat one back down and lifted a Mobian red and black with white part shoes out of one of the bags. Tom stared in disbelief and took in the shoes. It had golden-looking rings at the front of the shoe. The front, the sides, and the back were thick metal with a bright red to match his quills. It was advanced for a shoe and heavy-looking.
Carl left his gun back at where he found Shadow, so he went back to get it and found these in the bushes not too far from him. He must have dropped them when he blacked out.
Wade said, putting the shoe back into the bag. He handed the bag with the shoes to Tom, who took the bag with surprise on his face from how heavy the shoes felt.
I also got some soup for the kid for tomorrow, some colored socks and, well, you'll find out.
He said, shuffling the other bag. Tom chuckled at his best friend. Wade had a big heart.
Oh, Wade, you didn't have to.
Wade sat the bag of stuff in the hallway.
I wanted to. Listen, if you need more time for me to cover, I'll do it. All I ask is for you to update me on the kid. I want him to feel welcomed in Green Hills.
I'll let him know who it's from, and let him know you and Carl found these. And I'll keep you updated. Just right now, I need you to understand. He's jumpy and reluctant with humans.
Wade paused from his bent position to give his friend a strange look.
He was hurt by humans, wasn't he?
What gave that away?
Wade straightened himself up. Silence came from the deputy. Tom pursed his lip. People really didn't give enough credit to Wade. Sure, he's awkward and can be a dork at times, but that didn't make him stupid. Naive to some social aspect, sure, but still could be serious when it called for it.
I'm here. I'm never too far away, Sheriff. Not for my best friend. But I hope to meet him sometime. Until then, just update me whenever you can. Oh, and tell Maddie I said hi.
Tom appreciated that Wade understood the reluctance for the meeting. It was far too soon to introduce Shadow to more humans when he's barely comfortable with Tom and Maddie themselves. He won't put him through that. Not right now. After agreeing to say hi to Maddie for him, Wade waved his goodbye and made his way down the driveway into the police car. Tom waved him off as he left and closed the door. He peered into the kitchen and told Maddie about Wade and the 2 bags he left. She took out the soup from the lighter one and put it into the fridge. They decided to show what Wade brought for Shadow tomorrow, give him another day to rest. Both of them headed into the living room, where Shadow remained the way he was, eyes half closed, with tiredness plain on his face. Tails was reading another book, saving Lord of the Rings for another time with the Black Hedgehog. Sonic and Knuckles were discussing what to do tomorrow, probably trying to show Shadow some more stuff if they could. Tom and Maddie looked to each other, small smiles on both of their faces. Tomorrow is another day.